Okay.
Hello.
All right, now you're on the internet.
Now you're on. Hey, bud.
Now your face is on the internet.
Yeah.
All the people can see you now. Go get in bed. Now.
Okay.
Good night, buddy.
Bye.
Bye. You're all blurry. Okay, go.
Hey.
Thank you.
Hi, friends. How
Hello,
are you?
everybody. Sorry about that. Mom life.
I finished a Carmex. This is like
What?
This is a miracle. This is a miracle situation. Because I have like 8 of them, 9 of them, so I never end up finishing one. I just find a new one. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for showing up on a weird week, the first week of the month, rather than the last. We were honestly just really focused on our trip that was coming up like the very next day. And I was feeling slightly overwhelmed.
We both were.
Yeah.
We both had a lot on our plates.
Yep.
And it was going to be rough. So we definitely appreciate you guys being patient with us and allowing us to do this a little bit late.
Just popping in the next week. Yeah.
Hi, Katie Sue.
Hey, everyone. I'm eating, so sorry.
Amanda makes everybody's middle name Sue.
Yeah. All the neighbor kids are Sue also. So, and every single time they're like, that's not my name.
Yeah.
It is now.
I love it. Well, hey. Hi, Katie. How are you? Let me wait till you take a bite and then ask you a question. I love
how are you?
This is my favorite. So yeah, we're here to talk about the Miraculous tonight. We'll wait a couple minutes just to give people a chance to pop in if they're gonna.
I'm gonna be right back.
Yeah, feel free. Do your thing. Yeah, so thank you, like we were saying, for being flexible. It just means we have a shorter month to read the Graveyard Book, but hopefully that shouldn't be too big of a problem. Middle grade is usually pretty quick and easy.
Yeah.
Yes, Kat. It is always a good time. This was our 3rd year getting together. We were just talking before we pushed live that next time we need to not change time zones quite so drastically because we felt a little bit tired the whole weekend, which was a little bit of a bummer, and that's mainly because I had a 3-hour time. Sarah and I had a 3-hour time difference.
And we had a 2-hour. And so all of us were just in rough shape.
Yeah. Yep. It was a little.
And it made flights difficult.
Is Arizona West Coast time or?
No, it's mountain, but they do. They don't change for daylight savings.
That's right. I forgot Arizona. Arizona is one of those states.
Yep. So part of the year it's one way, part of the year it's a different way. The reservations change, but the state doesn't. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, Arizona
just on Arizona time.
Crazy time, yeah. But I'm really
Indiana
excited.
Also doesn't change time zones, right, Amanda? Indiana.
Yeah, they do. They used to not.
They used to. Now they do.
But they did like a state thing where either the whole state. It was a situation. Some counties would, some counties wouldn't. Everything like went back and forth. So they made a state law that either the entire state has to change, or the entire state doesn't. And each county, like, because there's a pocket around Northwest Indiana that's like Chicago suburbs.
Yeah.
That is on Central Time, and there's a pocket in the toe of Indiana that's down by Kentucky.
Yeah.
It is Central Time, and then everything else is Eastern Time.
Oh, weird.
So the high school that I graduated from, actually, the school district bridges a county line, and half of the county is on Central, and so like one county is on Central and one county is on Eastern. And before they made the law that everybody had to change, half the year everybody would be on the same time, and half the year everybody would be an hour different. But then they made the law in the state that the entire state had to change, and so now they're always an hour different.
My word.
So depending on where you live in the school district depends on what time you go on.
That's
It's a
crazy.
mess.
I can't imagine that they did it county by county like that.
Yeah, it's county by county.
Yikes.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't know in Canada, Saskatchewan does not do daylight savings either. Interesting. Well,
I
hello,
wish we didn't.
everyone. Hi, everyone who's here. There's about 25, 26 people here. And I'm thankful for you to being here. Yay. So this was a pick that I chose when we were going through the list. It's been on my shelves for a long time because when it first came out, it was a huge hit and people were raving about it. And I was like, I must have that because it talks about grief. And then I never read it, as happens quite often, right? So I'm really glad that now I can say that I've read it and I loved it. But let's start like we always do and kind of share. I know it might have been a while now since you read it. I read it early in September and now we're pushed back a week. So I feel like it's been quite a while since I've read it. But what were your general kind of thoughts about this one?
I liked it. I thought it was slow. It was very deep. Like it just felt very like, it was a good like rainy day read. It felt very atmospheric, very gloomy kind of atmosphere in it. It felt very dark and just very sad overall. Like there's just this sad overall feeling about the book. But at the same time, like the whole message of the book was to like look for the hope. There's still hope and to be hopeful. And so I definitely feel like that message came through in the book. But that being said, like, especially toward the end, I was like, all right, let's be done. I was ready to be done with it. So I ended up giving it like 3.5 stars. Just because it didn't like totally suck me in and everything, but I did appreciate what it was and what it was trying to do. I thought it did well.
Yeah. I don't remember what I rated it. I should look it up. Share it in the comments too. What did you guys think about this one? I agree that it was on the heavier side. But I don't mind that because I'm drawn to books that talk about grief and I think that they're so important. And especially as middle graders to show different ways that kids respond to grief, even between Faye and Wonder. Like her kind of hiding up under her cloak, her cape all the time, and just different ways that and showing the adults in their lives and how they're grieving because the parents get shown too. So I just think books that show grief are so important because it's something that we all face in one form or another, not necessarily loss like in this one, like a loss of a loved one, but in so many ways, moving away or even smaller scale, like fights with your friends or your parents getting divorced or like so many different ways that we experience grief. So I think that that's important. And I love the idea of the miraculous and all the different things that were considered miraculous in his book and that we got to see as the book went on. The journal that Wonder was keeping and how the miraculous was often not this big momentous thing, but often was smaller things too. And how that just kind of is an example of looking for wonder.
Yeah.
Like in the smaller things too. I really enjoyed it. I either gave it 4.5 or 5 stars for sure. Because I might have been 4, but something along that higher things. What do you think, Katie?
I really loved it. Sorry, my boys are playing right now and they're supposed to be in bed sleeping. So I'm like, my ear is like half listening to them. I really liked it. So it took me a while to read because it was a slower, thoughtful book, but I actually really enjoyed the pace of the book. And while I did think it was quite sad, the way it was, so the topic was sad and the atmosphere was sad, and yet the way it was written,
yeah,
like the writing wasn't sad, and the message of the book wasn't sad. And I thought that I just thought it was lovely. I thought the portrayal, kind of piggybacking off of what you said, Krista, I thought the portrayal of the way that each person in Wonder's family dealt with grief was interesting and also really real and really painful to witness, like his mom's grief. And I think especially was super painful to witness, because she was shutting everyone else out and just sort of like living in her pain, which is a totally realistic way that I think some people deal with grief, especially, I mean, grief. This situation was particularly devastating. I mean, there's lots of devastating losses, but I know for women who've gone through that kind of thing, it just is just really, really devastating. So, but that was painful to see, to read, but to read it. So if I've ever read from that perspective before, it would have always been focused on the mom's grief.
Yeah.
I thought that it was so interesting, and like I really loved that the book focused on Wonder and how he was reacting to it.
Yeah.
Reacting to both his parents, witnessing his parents' grief, and also dealing with grief of his own at the loss of his sister, and pushing his friends away. It all felt very real. The way a kid would really respond to grief, and so I really loved it. Even though, and this is my favorite thing about middle grade, right? Or one of my favorite things. You have this kid who is dealing with grief in a really realistic way, and yet there are some inexplicable situations surrounding him. This mysterious old woman, we never really find out who she is.
Right.
That's, sorry for any spoilers here, but you never find out who she is, and like that's really kind of left unresolved, and there's some disappointment there. Like there's even a little bit of it just like even the ending of that book was bittersweet. Which is my favorite way that a bittersweet ending is my very favorite kind of ending. So I loved it. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Like it wasn't a perfect book for me, but I still really loved it.
Yeah. I find it interesting. Like I was reading a couple blog kind of interviews with Jess Redman, and she's a therapist, and I didn't realize that.
I didn't know that.
So her focus in this book she knew she wanted to write a book that deals with grief. And I love that one of the things she wanted to focus on was connection, because that's such a big thing all the way through, the friendships and the family connections and the connections that he then makes with different people in the town, and then how the whole town kind of comes together and realizes we have all experienced a miracle, but also grief too, and loss hand in hand, and how they go hand in hand. I can after reading that she's a therapist, I'm like, oh, that makes complete sense after reading this book. Like that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I also really loved Wonder and Faye's friendship. Faye was such a great character. She was so great. I really loved Faye.
Yeah, I do too. I wanted to just see some of the comments. I also had a hard time getting connected, but it was a beautiful book with many potent passages. This is so true. Katie enjoyed it, 4.5. Was in the mood for it. One of the best books on grief I've ever read, even as an adult. Had a perfect mix of heavy hope and humor. Yeah, and I agree that it felt very realistic. Like all of the different, even the friendships with Davy and Tavos, or whatever his name was, friends, and how they both reacted to their friend who's grieving, and how often we've been in relationships with someone who experiences loss, and you just don't always know
the right thing to say,
or should you say something, or should you talk about that person or not, and when, and how much. Like that's something as an adult I still
it's true
and wonder. And so it was so cool to see that portrayed in these kids, like, and the two different sides of it. Tavo just like didn't want to deal with it at all, but Davy was like, I'm still here, I still want to be your friend, but I just don't know
how to
Oh.
act.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that she put those conversations in the book because I think
Yeah.
it's so good to give kids words to say when they're in that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how Faye would get frustrating, but I kind of loved her. And the mother was frustrating as well, but
But that's reality. That's reality of depression is sometimes even as a mom, you are not capable of taking care of others. And I think it's important too that in the book she says to him, I am sorry I have not been here.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't mean she can necessarily prevent it or stop it, but she understands this isn't normal and this isn't the way it should be.
Yeah.
And there's healing that will have to happen as a result of that. But that's any mom who's gone through postpartum or gone through depression can tell you, like, we understand we have kids to take care of. Sometimes it's not within your control to
you can't just snap out of it.
Yeah.
I feel like I was in college when my dad passed away, and I had 6 siblings who were still at home, and had to have multiple conversations with my sisters because of the way my mom reacted during that time. Mm-hmm. And just kind of like, there's no handbook for grief. Like, everybody responds in their own way. You guys did, mom did, and it probably wasn't perfect on anyone's part. But what's perfect? Like, that's just grief. Like, we just have to walk through it, and you have to put yourself in her shoes and try to understand. And maybe there was some mistakes made during that time, but there's no right or wrong way. Everybody kind of responds to grief in their own way. It can be frustrating from the outside watching or seeing it, but
because I mean, realistically, his dad was equally as absent.
Right? Oh, totally. He was like lost in work. He was like literally absent from the house. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I thought Faye. But I loved how Faye even was shown to be dealing with stuff, how she would just kind of cloak out the world every once in a while by hiding herself and take a few minutes to process or escape and then come back.
I like that the cloak was such a like literal representation of that, because kids do that all the time without having that like physical visualization of it. And so I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, although I also thought I loved that she didn't wear her grief on her sleeve quite as much as Wonder did. Yeah. But I loved that moment when like Wonder just kind of forgot, I think, because she didn't wear her grief on her sleeve, that she was grieving, and she had to be like, hey, I'm dealing with grief too. Don't you remember that my grandpa died?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was a good reminder for Wonder too, that, you know, like Krista said, people deal with grief in different ways, and Faye was dealing with it, you know, more internally. She wasn't necessarily expressing her grief outwardly in the same way. But it didn't mean that the grief was less.
Yeah.
Like a character. Like we talk about in some books the setting being a character. In this book, grief was basically a character because everybody was dealing with it in different ways. It was such a prevalent part of the story.
Yeah.
And it was a way of being more than a feeling. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Faye was great because although she was dealing with her grief, she was kind of a bright spot or a humor spot in the book too, which it needed. I mean, in a book where things can be so heavy, like there needs to be moments to kind of take a breath. Or so what other can you think of other moments in this book that brought that breather or humor in the midst of the sadness?
There were situations. A lot of them do involve Faye, but like I loved when they were going to get the branch from the tree, and Faye and Faye told the lie to the like the ticket attendant or whatever, or the conductor. That was pretty funny. That made me laugh.
I also think that it was a sad, frustrating moment, but also funny. The minister of consolation or whatever.
Oh my goodness.
Who performed
When he was at the funeral.
Oh yes.
It was
Oh,
like
he was
shouting.
hilarious.
Like so obtuse. Like, stop, please just stop talking.
Yeah.
So it was kind of funny, but also, oh man, can you imagine if that was a realistic situation? I would be like mortified. Oh,
That was funny.
Hey, Krista, I don't have my book with me, but can you look up? So Anne said that she found it comforting for any child or adult who's grieving. She loved the passage on page 286 and 287, and she read it at a graveside service of a friend,
ooh.
which is amazing. And now I want to know what passage that was.
I will tell you. Wow. Okay, so where is this going on? They're at the house, the spirals are spinning, then came flowers. Oh, the branch. When they connect the branch to the house or something, the branch began to spin. That's the page before. Wonder finally understands. It's so there. Okay. So the branch was just getting connected to the tree or something like that.
Okay.
He said, and suddenly Wonder understood. Everyone was connected, the living to the living, and the living to the dead, and the dead to the dead too. And no one was ever alone, and no one was ever truly gone, and nothing ever ended, because love never ended. And no one knew, no one could ever know all that was happening in this life or after. There were truths that couldn't be measured. There were connections that couldn't be traced. There were mysteries that couldn't be unshrouded. And there were ways to hold someone's hand even when that hand was buried far under the ground, even when that someone was lying in a small white box. Oh, golly. There was sadness. There was never-ending sadness. Sadness that left you motionless in your bed. Sadness that chased you away from home day after day. Sadness that could make your heart feel like a stone. But there were miracles, too. There were miracles. At the base of the tree, there was a hole, a hollow place. Well, and then Wonder found it because, then it carries on. To what? Okay, that's when they planted. Is that when they planted the branch?
That's when Wonder planted the branch, and then because he was alone when he planted it, and then he like fell asleep in that nook.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah.
Oh, this was funny too, that Faye kept calling him Wendy.
That was hilarious. He's like, that's not my name.
It's Wonder. She just kept doing it.
And then he
totally
gave up.
I like that it had religion mentioned throughout as well. It was humorous at times. I thought it was so funny that she kept calling it. I just missed a couple others. Yeah, it could be tricky for some people, considering the that he's dealing with. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you think this part of the story should have been tied up in a big red bow, or did you like not having any conclusion about the old lady in the doorway house?
It didn't bother me.
It didn't bother me. I maybe I would have wished that we had a little bit more, but it didn't bother me. It didn't affect my experience of the book or my rating or anything.
Yeah. I usually am someone who likes a big red bow, but I'm kind of glad. I think in certain books, I feel like Tuck Everlasting kind of leaves things like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Certain books where and The Giver as well, you're like, wait a minute, but is she just a witch? Is she Milagros, the sister? Is she just this old lady?
Yes.
Like, who is she? We never really get
an explanation.
So everyone can kind of just wherever you land, whatever you feel.
Yeah.
That's the answer for you.
Yeah, I mean, the book really didn't answer a lot of profound questions. It lets the
Yeah.
book was letting you wrestle with those profound questions. And yeah, it offered hope, but it didn't answer anything. And I really appreciated that. And that was you know, the biggest, or sort of like the clearest depiction of that up in the air is the fact that we never found out who Milagros was.
Yes.
But, you know, there were a lot of questions about death and, you know, and all of that that it's left up to the reader to sort of wrestle with.
Yeah. I think in that article that I was reading, or the blog that I was reading, it was an interview with her, and she was kind of talking about the witch and not giving full answers, but she said transforming fear of life's uncertainty into wonder at life's mysteries has kind of been a theme in her own personal life. But I'm like, ooh, that's so good. That's what she's doing here, because we don't know what life is going to bring, and there's always that uncertainty and the unknown, and that's what this book is doing, like seeing those things as miracles and trying to find the wonder in life, as opposed to being afraid of the unknown, but looking for what could be amazing in the unknown. And she kind of said that's why she didn't want to give a full answer about the witch.
Yeah.
Leave you kind of wondering about her.
Yeah. I feel like that's obviously she expressed that much better, but that's kind of what I was trying to say. The witch herself is an unanswered question,
Right?
Among these other unanswered questions, and the witch was representing all the questions that we had in many respects. So yeah.
Yeah, like anyone that someone needed. Yeah. I get it. I felt that way before too. Needing the big red bow. Yep. She was the instigator of the connections at the end. Seeing that everybody, it's kind of a universal thing that we've all experienced loss and we've all experienced miracles.
Just as a side note, what you mentioned, Tuck Everlasting, I have never cried harder in my life than at the end of that story. Now, I haven't read the book, but I've seen the movie, and I weep every time, uncontrollably.
Oh, see, mine is Bridge to Terabithia.
You have not.
I haven't read Tuck Everlasting. I know it's
so short. It's so
short. It's like a 2-hour audiobook.
I know.
You need to.
I know.
Read it.
I do need to read it.
Along
It's been
with
long enough now that I haven't seen the movie. I had to stop watching the movie because every time I watched it, I would like, and it would concern the people around me because it wasn't just like silent sobs. It was.
Well, that's how I was with Bridge to Terabithia, especially after I realized that Catherine Patterson.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She wrote it because her son, like, of events that happened to her son.
Really?
She wrote it for her son because he was going through similar circumstances. Yeah. And so when I watched the movie, like, my husband had to take the kids out of the room because I was like such a wreck.
Yeah.
It was a situation.
My book like that is A Monster Calls. This is a newer one. I mean, I cried in both of those ones as well. Don't get me wrong. I cried pretty much everything ever. But A Monster Calls was the one that I closed the book and I curled up into a ball and I just sobbed for quite a long time afterwards. And when I went to go see in the movie theater, I brought a box of tissues with me because I knew, like, there's no question about me crying during this movie. And sure enough, from basically the beginning. Yeah, that one.
I made my husband go see the movie Wonder with me the first time I saw it because I was going to take my kids, and I was like, no, because I will probably be crying the entire movie, and they don't need to be subjected to that. So I made my husband take me for a good reason.
When I was living in LA, I went to see Toy Story 3 when it came out.
Oh no.
And it was at like
I still cry at the end of Toy
I
Story.
do
3.
too. I do too. And not just like the very end. Like I cry when it was like I start crying when they're about to go in the like trash incinerator, and then I just don't stop crying for the rest of the movie. And I was in between a stranger and like my 10-year-old cousin who'd come to visit me in LA, and we were at the Chinese Grauman Theater, like the Disney theater, and it was filled. It was like packed, and I could not keep quiet. It was like I was trying so hard to keep quiet, and it was just like I was such a mess. I was such a mess during that movie. And yes, I still cry every time.
Yeah.
I love that stuff is out there though, because it's good to see.
Me too. We
feel.
need these books that make us feel these emotions. Yeah.
So I learned
stories, books, and movies.
in reading that interview again. I love doing that because I learned that I've just forgot the name of the tree.
The doorway tree.
Doorway, yes. The doorway tree is based on mythology from multiple different countries that have a special kind of a tree. And in doing research for this book, she went into all kinds of cultures and the way that they handle death and grieving. And so she was able to give Faye and other characters just a kind of different little things that they did as part of their grieving process that she's like, if I put it all in there, it would have been a much more boring book. Like she had to take it all out. But I love that she did so much research because I think there are some cultures that, every culture does grieving a little different. And I think in America, we've gotten to the point where we act like the friends, the boys, where we don't say anything,
ask.
Right. We don't talk about it. We just kind of.
Well, we don't even really acknowledge that we are so separated from death.
And he's like, her name was Milagros. Like, just say her name. She was here. She existed. Yeah. So I feel like, make it harder than say, I don't know much about many grieving traditions and stuff, but I know like in Jewish culture, they sit Shiva.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Where they just sit with the family for 7 days. And they just sit there and just be with them. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
They also don't shower.
I don't love that one. That works better for some than others, I suppose. But yeah, I just think that there's a lot to be said about different traditions and ways to honor or talk about or process some of that grief.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether it's putting flowers on a grave or having a memoriam every year, whatever. Like there's just different ways to honor the importance of that person in your life or that situation.
I liked what Teresa said. She said, I liked what the witch taught them about that no one escapes loss. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying. I think you said when we first started talking about the book, Krista, that grief and miracles are all tied up with each other, and no one can really escape either thing. We will all, every single person, it's part of the human condition. We will all experience loss.
Mm-hmm.
We will all die ourselves, but we will all lose people that we love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, too.
Yeah, Debbie, this is so true. And adults. It's not just kids.
It's just our society.
Yeah. And I love this, Anne, that you needed to own it. Read it from the library, but needed to own it. Yeah. If I were someone who annotated, there was definitely a lot of things in here that I probably would have marked. It's a lot of points to ponder. There is a phrase, "We will all be changed," that's repeated often. And someone had mentioned the part at 240, which is where Wonder has a little not a meltdown, but it's Wonder's exhaustion had caught up to him. The heaviness in the room, the weight of his mother's grief, and his father's helplessness. It was all pressing against him so hard. He had tried to make things better, but everything was worse now, far worse. He didn't want to try anymore. I guess we've all changed, he said. And then he went in his room, shut the door, and he shut the door on all of them. And I just feel like we all get to that point eventually where we're like, just can't handle it anymore. But that idea of everybody changing, like, yeah, it's a part of life. Like, as we grow and experience different things, we're going to change. But when we experience something like this as well, I mean, Wonder, it starts out with him not believing in miracles anymore and putting all of his miracology stuff in his closet and not wanting to deal with it anymore. And then we get to see him work through that and get to the point where he comes out on the other side a little bit. Not like grief is gone, but I like that we get to see Wonder's change. We get to see change in other people in the book too.
Okay. Mom, go read. Okay.
I mean, we see the parents a little bit work through it. I mean,
Just a little, a touch. Yeah.
This only happens across the span of 1 month, so it's very short in life, right? Like 1 month. I don't expect them to.
Yeah.
Wrap it up and okay, I'm
To
all right.
To have like worked through it all. Yeah.
Yes.
But I did feel like there was resolution enough that they came back to each other.
Yeah.
And maybe moving forward, they can sort of deal with their grief together rather than isolating themselves from each other, kind of like they were doing.
And when we see Davy change a little, just in being willing to kind of chase them down, follow them in his bike to the witch's house. Yeah.
I like Katie's comment about each character representing a different stage of grief.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting point I hadn't thought of.
I hadn't either. Talk more about that. Who do you guys see as representing each of those stages? Who's
like because
Niall,
his mom's depression.
Yeah.
I think he's anger. I don't think that thumbs up was for me.
Sorry, no. Fox was reading his. Hey, don't leave that. Sorry, I'll put myself on mute.
I don't know that the dad is denial. It's more
avoidance.
Avoidance, yeah, which is also one of the.
Who was avoidance?
I would say the dad, kind of.
Dad, yeah.
In burying himself in work so that he doesn't have to be home working through the emotions of stuff. Or being strong for Wonder or whatever. He just kind of
bargaining. I think Wonder was bargaining a little bit because I think he was really hoping that the doorway tree might provide the miracle of bringing his sister back in some way.
And really hoping, about the witch too. That's who that was.
Yes. Yep.
Well, and the friends in a way could be denial. I mean, by not talking to him about it at all, representing that a little bit. Yeah, that's a good. Oh yeah, Kelsey said she liked how Wonder's belief in miracles kind of fluctuates as the story goes on. Like, he gets a little hopeful, like no, and then he's like, okay, but maybe, but no, and then kind of. It did feel it felt very realistic. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's cool, Teresa. How your experience has helped. Yeah. Faye was a little anger too.
Yeah.
Her. because everyone, forgetting her grandfather, yeah. I was so curious about this the stone, the gravestone that was at the top of the cemetery or something that was
Oh yeah.
had her name, and it was
That's
like
right.
I forget what it said, but that was another kind of mystery throughout for me. I mean, we learned a little bit about it as it went on, but I remember that being like, wait a minute, who put that there? Is she really? is this magical realism enough that the witch is the sister? I don't know. It made me question, which is fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Milagros was Acceptance, the old lady.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like with Milagros, I just thought of this. Someone earlier said how she sort of could be anyone to anything
Anything to anyone.
to anyone, and how we don't really know that her name was truly Milagros. Like perhaps that's just the name that she gave to Wonder because that's who she needed to be for him.
Maybe.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I just liked it.
Yeah, it was a good one.
I do love the emphasis on connections, because I think everybody's tendency is to isolate themselves and feel alone in their grief. And this whole story was about connecting with people who have experienced miracles and loss, and from the friendships to the family to the letters that he had to deliver, and he realized after the first few that it was all people who had experienced miracles that he had recorded from the newspaper in his little miracle book that he kept. I love that he started giving them the pages too, to kind of remind them like of the miracles that they have experienced. And what a treasure that would be. I don't know, I just think of people who sent notes and stuff about my dad or whatever months later, and we're like, I just had a memory. Someone just this year, it's been since 1997, and we went to go visit camping friends earlier this summer, and the first thing we get out of the car, and the first thing they said was, Nathan would be so proud of us right now.
Aww.
My dad was like 20 something years ago, and they had just gone around like delivering a little treat to other people at the campgrounds with a Bible verse on it.
Oh, cute.
Whatever. And they're like, Nathan would be so proud, because they're going around doing something that he would have done. I'm like, I love that that's your first thing you say. So him giving them a piece of the miracle, like just that page and of his recorded thoughts about their miracles, and being a reminder of the good and the wonder that they've experienced.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't all live forever. It's just a fact of life. So if someone had a miracle, that doesn't mean that they're going to live forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's still sadness tied up with it, but to be reminded of those good things is something that we need as well in the midst of that pain.
I agree.
I love this book, and I like this author. This was her debut.
Has she written more since then?
Yes. So she has Quintessence, which I also read.
Yeah.
And
which did you prefer, Krista?
This one. Quintessence was a little stranger because it's about a star that comes to Earth and is like a being.
Okay.
Trying to get back to her star.
Okay.
So it's a little more fantastical. I did really like it. And then the other one is The Adventure Is Now, which I also own, but I haven't read it yet. So she has 3. And I have no idea what the adventure is about. I just knew it was her, so I bought it.
Yeah.
Like, I own it on my shelf.
This is a fun-filled, action-packed middle grade novel about a boy who learns about protecting the environment, finding real friends, and living in the now while spending the summer on a remote island.
Summertime book. I guess I'll have to read it next summer.
Yeah.
I'll be excited.
It looks like it's kind of like Jumanji, because it says when Milton plays his video game Isle of Wild, he becomes someone else. Seahawk, the brave and brilliant naturalist explorer who conquers danger at every turn. Then they ship him off to the remote island for the summer. Oh, maybe not. Maybe I read that wrong.
I love it though. One of her favorite books as a kid, and then to read to her kids, is the Chronicles of Narnia. And that whole.
Did you say that in the? I feel like I read something too, because I feel like I've heard that. Anyway, keep going.
Well, that whole mix of feeling realistic and realistic relationships and all of that with this aspect of whimsy and magic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Narnia is a little bit more fantasy, but
yeah.
Her agent's name is Sarah Crow, and I read it as Sarah Crew, thinking that it was something about a little princess, but no. But yeah, was there any other parts of the book that you feel like we haven't covered? I feel like we kind of talked about everything.
I don't think so.
Oh, I also learned in this book, there's obviously emphasis on names with Lockhart and Milagros, but I read at some point that everyone who's alive has a name that's related to trees, and everyone who has passed has a name related to flowers. I don't know if I didn't go through, because there's so many people as he has to hand out all the. I might have that flip flopped.
Interesting.
That is interesting. How?
I don't know.
Because I wonder if it would be like in the meaning of the name, because not every name, like Faye isn't a flower name. Is Faye a flower name?
I'm going to see where I found that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, was that just a fun thing for her as she was writing? Oh, she does refer to the bridge to Terabithia. She said she wanted the characters to express their thoughts and feelings honestly, which is what Bridge to Terabithia gets so right. The raw honesty of Jesse's grief.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's a book that impacted her.
Yeah, I need to reread that book. It's been a long time. I used to love it. I've read it since I was a kid, and I loved that book when I was a kid.
I can't find where I read that. I'm not making it up, though. I just might have said it wrong. I don't know. Oh, well. Okay. I can't remember where I found it, but.
I don't have my book on me. Otherwise, I'd look in the book and see what names are in there.
I know I left my book in a different room.
Might have been in her study guide.
Where did I put the book? What I'm saying that.
Did you listen to the audiobook, Amanda?
Oh, yes, I did.
How was the audiobook?
It was really good. It was, I think that contributed to like the atmosphere is just the narrator's voice was very like, I don't know, like kind of slow. I mean, like I know you could speed it up, but it was just, I won't say calming, but it was just kind of like I don't know. It wasn't like happy and bubbly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, here it is. It's in her study guide that she created.
Cool.
There are other names. So both Wonder and his sister have names that mean miracle. There are other names in the story with significant meanings. For example, many, it's not all, but many of the living characters' names, first or last, are related to trees, while many of the deceased have names related to flowers or birds. I don't know. I just thought that was
Interesting.
super creative. Yikes.
That is very creative. I like it.
I like it too. Now it made me want to like go back and like make a list of all the names or just kind of notice. I don't know. What's Faye's last name? Do we ever know that?
Yeah.
She's Korean.
Yeah. We do, but I don't remember it.
I don't either.
But I feel like we heard it.
Do you think the doorway house really spiraled? Do you think you really saw that? Because that's his first miracle that he sees.
I do. I believed it as true.
The whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, because the doorway tree was, miraculously grew. Like it was a miracle tree. So I do believe that he, really saw spirals. Do you?
I mean, sure. A little bit of magic for the sake of the story. Mm-hmm. I just love that got him started with this. I've never seen a kid who was obsessed with miracles before. I just like the idea of it, that he created a whole little notebook and called himself a miracle.
His parents encouraged it.
Yes,
his dad was like, "Let's do this."
I love that. Well, why not? If you're looking through the newspaper to find little miracles, you're reading the
newspaper.
Love about that.
Is a miracologist a real thing, or is that a name? Is that a word made up for the book? I just looked it up because I was like, is that actually something? I think that it was made up for the book, or that I think that he made it up.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, that is fun.
All right, so here's your job between now and next month. Spot a miracle. I love the idea of that, because then it's all about perspective. When you're looking for that, that's what you're going to see. We talk about that in my church with kids during a vacation Bible school. Like, we call them God sightings. Like, how did you see God today? Because when you're looking for something, that's what you're going to notice, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's a pet peeve that once you notice it, you can't ignore it, or if it's on the positive side. So I'm like, it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
Oh, there's her name. Katie said Faye G-Min Lee.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh, yeah. And interesting that next month's book is the Graveyard Book.
I've started, or this month's book. October.
Oh, yes. Excuse me. Yes, we are in October.
We are into it. I started listening to it, and oh my gosh, I can't keep the smile off my face. It's written so wonderfully. It's just.
Oh, I can't wait to read it. Have I read Neil Gaiman?
Have you not read
Neil Gaiman?
You've never read the Graveyard Book? Oh.
I'm excited for you, Amanda, because I think it's a reread for the other three of us.
Yeah.
I think I read it in print though before, but there are great illustrations, Katie, if you can get your hands on a copy.
I'm going to. So I started listening to it, and I'm listening to it in the car and forcing my kids to listen to it with me.
Fun. Yeah, there's some great illustrations in here.
Yeah. But the narrator's voice is wonderful.
Oh, good. I think I read it in print last time, so I'm excited to listen to it.
Yeah. I read it in print last time too, but I own a print copy, so I probably will pull it off the shelf and just sort of look through it.
Oh my word. I'm glad that you pulled over in a major storm, major car storm, especially at night. I hate driving in rain at night because all the lights just seem to fly, right? And then add thunder and lightning on top of that. Yikes. I'm glad you
I hate driving in downpours like that.
Yeah, it's no fun. She's like, I won't forget this discussion.
Yeah. So everyone who this will be their first Gaiman, this book is very different than Neil Gaiman's other books.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, so Neil Gaiman's books are strange. I've read a couple of his adult books and they are weird and I can't get into them. I've finished them and I enjoyed them, but they're weird.
They're weird.
He's a flavor. He is a flavor.
I think the only thing I've read is The Ocean at the End of the Lane.
I've read The Ocean at the End of the Lane.
It was very weird.
Yes, and I've read American Gods, which was like that one. So there's The Ocean at the End of the Lane, which is weird, and then there's American Gods, which is like.
And I watched the
really
movie of, what is it? Starflight. What's
Star? No, it's
Oh man, I can't think of it. But I watched the movie of it. I've never read the movie.
I know which one you're talking about.
Stardust. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah.
I would not be opposed to reading Stardust because I enjoyed the movie of it. It's also strange, but
yeah, I mean, even the Graveyard Book it's strange, but I think because it's written for kids, it's not quite as strange. I don't know. It's strange, but it's not like as, and the writing is just it's so good. It's so good.
Very cool. So we will be meeting on Wednesday. Let me tell you the date, October 25th. So that's just 3 weeks from today.
And I think, but we will probably have a
sprinty
sprint. Yes.
At some point. Yeah. And the sprints may not always be on a Wednesday. I know someone mentioned, and Jenna was here in the comments. I don't know if she's home now, but Katie said, please tell her we missed her tonight. We'll let her know for sure.
Yeah.
Her work hours have changed and Wednesdays are a little trickier for her. So we may do sprints on a different night. So just be prepared. But we will have the book club chats on Wednesdays still. But sprints might not always be on Wednesday. Just what might work for us.
Jennifer asked if sorry, I'm going back to the Graveyard Book. Jennifer asked if it was narrated by Neil Gaiman, and I just looked it up, and it is. I had no idea he is the one narrating it, and he's fabulous.
The Ocean at the End of the Lane was narrated by him too.
I think he narrates most of his own books, doesn't he?
Wow, that's amazing because I feel like that's a very different skill set than like writing a book, and not every author is a good narrator narrating their own book. I mean, some authors do it and you're like, why did you make that choice? That was not a good life choice. Yes, but he is excellent. So I love that I love it. Anyway. Sorry.
And Betsy just reminded me there is a graphic novel adaptation of the Graveyard Book. I think I'm going to check that out from the library too. I forgot that there's a graphic novel of it.
Yeah.
Because it would be fun to see that as well. All right. So sounds
good.
That's all she wrote. Thanks for joining in, friends.
Yes, thank you guys so much.
About the book. I feel like so far, overall, the books have been really good.
Yeah.
Overall.
Yeah.
Like a few people here and there that didn't love them, but I think we did a good job picking so far.
We're not done yet.
We're not done yet.
But some of them we haven't read. Just a couple of them, none of us had read. Like this one, I don't think any of us had read. Miraculous.
Yeah.
So it's that fingers crossed that it's going to be good.
Yeah, I think we only have 2. Well, I don't know if anybody's read Ballet Shoes.
I haven't. I've read other Noel Streatfeild books, but I've never read Ballet Shoes.
No.
And then The Winter King.
We haven't read either.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's read that one.
You read Free Lunch, and 3 of us have read Graveyard Book, so we're good with those ones. But all right, well, thanks everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and had a great start to October. Thanks again for being flexible with us and switching to the next week. We appreciate that.
Yes, we greatly appreciate that.
Yes. And we will be chatting with you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.